Thank you very much. Good
Mhm.
morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session for the Agile and Fulfilled program. Just to tell you briefly what Agile and Fulfilled is, Agile and Fulfilled is a career arm of the Saints of Christ Church, where we empower our members, acquaintances with skills, employability skills to help accelerate their career progress, even enter into the world of work, equipping them with the right skills that makes them high potential in the marketplace, in the workplace. Today's conversation is not far off from what we've been doing so far. Today's own is there's something that happens in life where in my line of work, um, whether it's with recruitment or you're looking at a talent profile for promotion, sometimes we will look at profile with a different lens to which the person sees themselves, right? In your mind, you think I'm the best. Please, whilst you're listening to me, you can still also remind others to join. It's only a few of us on the call today. So just quickly remind your friends to join quickly. All right. So what we have realized that in the world of work, whether it's for promotion or getting a pay rise or getting a new job, entering into a new industry, there are usually some set of skills, there's some set of abilities that are required by the management before a decision is made. And sometimes when there are considerations, some names are also dropped as a result of lack of visibility of those skills. What we are going to be doing this morning is unlocking those potential for those already in their career path and for those who also want to perhaps venture a new industry, pivot from what they're doing currently, or they know there's something in them. Or if you're not in the paid employment and you know that there's something in you, the skills are usually very similar, very typical, right? Very, very similar. So what are the things we're looking at this morning? We want to learn some tips on how to identify your strength. That's why we said the lenses with which the management or your board are viewing the lenses with which they're viewing you or your profile is not the same lens as which you are viewing yourself. Now, what needs to be different is first starting with you. Do you even understand your strength? Do you understand your passions? Do you understand your values? It is when you understand these things that you ignite and create a spark in your career. And whatever it is, even if it's self-employment you are, it would spark a new identity, it will spark a new interest. Today, we're also hoping at the end of the session, you would be able not just to identify your strengths, also be able to showcase build your own personal brand, define what's your personal brand, and then you learn a way to showcase them as well as your unique proposition. You then, for you to have joined this session this morning, we can see that you're already committing to a lifelong learning, whereby you don't think you know it or you still want to hear a thing or two that could help you enhance what you currently have. And with no further ado, we have someone here, a member of our church, who has volunteered to share with us nuggets of how to unlock our career potential. And no other person is Kate Daniels. Kate, your camera is off.
Good morning. How's this? Good?
Aha. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so other person is Kate Daniels, who has volunteered to do this. I mean, if we were to go for a professional out there, we know that we're going to have to pay a fortune to have this and lock down. I mean, I've looked at her profile. All I could say was, wow, 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 wow. And she lives it, she talks it, and you can see visibly in the way her career trajectory has taken her. Not to inundate us with her growth, our career trajectory so far. It's to really unlock together the dynamics of what we can put into play, and will change the dynamics of how we show up in our places of work or if in your personal business, how you can adopt this to showcase your skill. Over to you, Katie.
All right, thanks, Sister Christy. Good morning, everyone. Just to do a little pulse check, I'm gonna ask that you reach out via the chat section. Give me a thumbs up, good morning, hi, hello, whatever it is, just so I'm sure I'm not speaking to myself. Okay, let's see those coming. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Keep them coming, keep them coming. Good morning. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Sister Christy, all the hype, I hope I live up to expectations. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen, right? Sister Christy, I'll need you to confirm for me though, that you can see my screen.
We can, yes, we can.
All right, so I'm going to take this all the way to the top. Okay, I'm going to put it on slideshow mode. Okay.
Awesome.
Please confirm that you still can see my screen.
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you. Good morning once again, everyone. My name is Kate, like Sister Christy introduced. I'm a marketing professional, specifically a marketing communications professional. And I've had a very checkered, like I like to call it, a very checkered career trajectory. I mean, I've gone from creative to FMCG to luxury to who am I missing out? Healthcare. Let's not forget healthcare. And now I'm in the technology space. And I remember once I sat down before an HR professional. Oh, by the way, Sister Christy, how long do I have? Just so I know what I'm working with.
So we will leave 20 minutes for Q&A. So carry on till about 11:30.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I once sat before an HR professional who, after looking through my bio, went, wow, you've more or less touched on 5 different industries. Not most of them were quite intentional. Some others, of course, in the earlier years were more or less like labor force pushing me into that space. We all live in Nigeria and we know how it is. No one claims, to have all the answers, but, we do our best. Now, as part of my presentation today, I'll also run us through some third-party, not just secondhand, but third-party experiences I've had or heard, and then some of my own personal experiences. Maybe we might be able to glean off something or the other. Okay, so today's topic, career catalyst, unlocking your potential. Now, part of the charge is that, we'll be looking at exploring ways to build authentic relationships, develop skills, and increase visibility to drive career advancement and success. Now, without further ado, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now, this is a mind poll. It's not like I'm expecting anyone to respond or put any response in the chat section. It's just a quick mind poll. And what I'm asking is, what's currently holding you back in your career? 1, lack of visibility. 2, skill gaps. 3, mentors, sponsors. We'll delve into what that means as we go along. And then, of course, the big elephant in the room, fear or self-doubt. So it's just a mind poll to keep us thinking. So before we start, I have a little story. Now, back in and this is personal, true story. So back in 2014, I went for a job interview and I was to meet with the chairman of the organization and his head of legal. Now, for interviews, this is just me, right? You know how you're prepping for interviews, especially if it's a high-stake interview. This one wasn't so much of a high-stake interview for me, right? Back in the day, I liked to go for interviews because they keep me sharp. I do that, or I used to do that a lot back in the day. right? Not necessarily, most of them not necessarily because I was interested in getting, the role, but, just to keep myself sharp on that knife edge, right? So this was one of those type of interviews. Huge organization, I'm not going to mention names, huge organization, great organization. But you'd be amazed that for me, the deciding point was when I met with a highly placed staff of this same organization. So as part of my going for interviews, prepping for interviews, to organize the butterflies, sometimes you have those butterflies that set your nerves on edge, right? To organize those butterflies, I like to have conversation starters, right? That have absolutely no bearing, none whatsoever on the interview. So, and in this year, it was when we had the whole Ebola crisis. So I had a hand sanitizer that was a dangler, right, hanging from my bag. So when I was led into the office to wait for the chairman and his head of legal, I positioned that bag, intentionality. I positioned that bag such that that hand sanitizer was visible to whoever that was going to come into the room, because I wanted that to be my conversation starter, So of course, this had no bearing on the interview. And so when the chairman and his head of legal walked in, you won't believe what happened. I'm going to pause that story for now. So let's go on to the topic of the day. What does the term career mean? We find that, according to Merriam-Webster, this is primarily a profession for which one trains and is pursued as a permanent calling. Let's underline that word, calling, or as a field of consecutive, progressive achievement. Note, it doesn't say job. Now, in Lebanese, breaking that down in Lebanese, it's a long-term professional path you intentionally prepare for and commit to, often seen as more than just a job. It's a meaningful pursuit that combines training, work, and purpose. So 3 keywords: training, work, and purpose. That is what career means in a nutshell. It doesn't speak to a job. A job is just a means to get some reward. It can be in terms of money, right? Some reward for work done. Now, career has purpose underlining it. It has more intentionality surrounding it. That's the point I wanted to bring out with this slide. Now, forget all the long grammar you see on the screen, right? For one to actually determine, right, that he or she is starting a career path, is towing a career path, a whole lot is going on inside. A whole lot comes from the inside. And because your career is not a, like my mom would say, bang, bang, dim, dim. It's not a rush in, rush out type of journey. I had to couch that as journey because it's a long-term pursuit. Now, when you look at how it is you want to shape, the kind of work you do, the career, and I'm not just talking to people in paid employment, I'm also talking, because I've been on that side of the divide as well, people that run businesses. You own your job, you own your business. I'm also talking to that side of the divide. So how people perceive you. Now, this speaks to your reputation, it speaks to the value you bring to the table, and it speaks to consistency. Because again, if we recall, even from the Bible, when Saul, who later turned Paul, was converted, if you recall, the disciples kept away from him because they needed to see that conversion was truly, conversion. So what people see at first blush, right? People imagine it's a one-off, let's just see. They might not be deliberately weighing you, but time will show that we're all constantly being weighed. We're all constantly being assessed, sometimes intentionally, sometimes subconsciously, right? So what people see that remains with you over time, now that's what we call personal branding. So, and for you to achieve or attain, that that level where you say, this is this person, this is intrinsic to this person, right? The mind comes into play. Now, this is one of the toughest thing one can think of training, right? But we thank God that even the Bible recognizes this and says to us to renew our mind. This is a constant charge, renew your mind. Now, I made a couple of notes here, right? And if you recall at the start of this, I had said, career doesn't speak to a job. Now, that's what you do to earn money or whatever reward. It's not just you having the mindset of, oh, I want to survive. No, there's so much more to that. That's why for some people, you find that they get into a particular vocation not expecting any rewards, not expecting any payback, right? But they loan themselves out, sometimes for free. Apprenticeship, is couched under this. Sometimes for free, just so they learn something and then drive something. The end or the goal, of course, will yield rewards, but that is not the first thought, that informs the action, right? So in positioning ourselves, right, in driving, our mind shift from that job, mentality into the career space, we've got to deal with the mind. And that's why I wrote that, the first door is internal, is the mindset, is your self-worth, and of course, it's your clarity in pushing all of that forward. Now, some people would go, I'm just surviving. While I understand that the country can be that way, right? It doesn't mean that if you currently have a job, now I'm not talking about career, it doesn't mean that you can't start a career. We'll get to that. So a career mindset would be one where you say, I am more than this description. What is that description? You hear, while this is acceptable in society, you hear people say, I'm an engineer, I'm a public servant, I'm a marketer, I'm an aesthetician or whatever it is, right? But behind all of that, now that is acceptable, like I said, in society, but behind all of that, what is your mindset saying? I put a couple of examples here. For a marketer, for instance, your mindset should be one of, I help businesses grow through storytelling, right? And then for a public servant, the mindset should be, I drive community impact through public policy. Now, that is the mindset. Now, shifting from an employee mindset or a staff mindset to a solution provider, a solution giver, your thought has got to be aligned accordingly as well. So how do I create impact? Now, these are some of the questions, some of the thought processes, that we should have. How do I create impact? What problem do I solve? You find that when your mind occupies that space, you find that you have so much to bring to the table, so much value to bring to the table. Again, I put a couple of questions down, still speaking to the mindset. I dedicated, I think, 2 slides just for this, just for emphasis. Now, who are you without your job title? This brings to mind, one of the apologies, I got a bit distracted. A call was going to come in. I needed to stem that. Okay, so this brings to mind the former, I think it was the former chairman, group chief of staff of the US Armed Forces, Colin Powell. Something he said I find very profound, and I try to live, I've tried to live throughout the years. He said, before you get into your office, check your ego at the door. Check your ego at the door. Now, what is that saying? How are you known beyond your job title? So you might be chairman, you might be head of XYZ or senior manager, blah, 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 whatever the title is. Outside of that, what are you known for? How are you perceived? What do people know you as? Very key. Now, if you're surviving in your career, right, that is not the place to be. We'll go into how we want to change that narrative. that is not the place to be. You've got to be shaping your career. And it's a very, very, very intentional journey. Again, journey. Now, what do you believe about your potential? Again, stemming from your mindset. What do you think you have? What do you have with you that you're bringing to the table? Now, the food for thought I had pegged here was, in 3 words, how would you describe your current career state? Worth thinking about. So for that, now putting all of this theory into practice, I had outlined 3 key pillars to unlocking potentials, right? And the first one is authentic relationships. Of course, this is stemming from the fact that nobody climbs alone, right? One of the, I won't call it a cliche, but one of the mottos I live by is that you might not have money, but the best currency you can actually have is relationships, right? Or our relationships. Now, the second key pillar, skill development. I know everybody must have heard this, time and time again, right? And that's because it is important and it has its place, in one who is very deliberate about his or her career. Then the third one is increasing visibility. Now, there's, for me, I'm coming from a different direction when you talk about visibility, because a whole lot of times when I've heard this talked about, what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is a lot of eye service. No, there's so much more to visibility than eye service. Eye service creates the concept that, it's not really you, it's not your authentic you, it's not your authentic self. So there's so much more to that. Underpinning these 3 pillars is a growth mindset. Again, the mind. When you bring these 3 things together under the lens of personal branding, something really powerful happens. Your relationships will reflect your brand. Your skills reinforces your brand, or your skills reinforce your brand. And then your visibility. Now, that is the platform from which you're able to project your brand. Now, speaking to authentic relationships, I had already mentioned how this is that currency for growth. We have mentors. I'm sure it's a very familiar term. We have sponsors, and then we have our allies or our peers. We have to know the difference. So mentors guide you, they advise, they share insights, especially from experience, personal or otherwise. So what they do is they talk to you. Now, sponsors, they advocate for you in decision-making rooms. So what they do is talk about you. Then your allies or your peers, they grow with you. These are the people that, not like they see you finish, like we say, but they know you, right? Now, they can make introductions, they can collaborate with you, or hold you accountable. Very key. For mentors, right? Because a whole lot of the advice or insights you'll be getting from this particular crop of people, right? You want to put that through a particular lens. I'll get to that lens shortly. Now, sponsors, those are the people that can recommend you for, say, promotions. They can recommend you for a particular job. They can recommend you for a particular work. Now, you yourself, even while you're seeking grounds, to break through in your career, you can also be a sponsor for somebody. So while you're wearing that hat, that career hat, you can also be wearing a sponsor's hat. Then for your peers or your allies, please, these people grow with you. They too can sponsor sometimes, because even in making introductions, they happen to be that door, to whatever opportunity lies ahead. Now, very, very key across these 3 types of relationships, I had said that skills matter, but relationships can actually amplify them. Please, across these 3, look at them through the lens of the Holy Ghost. Very, very key. So a personal experience, true story. I had gotten introduction, right? That led me to a particular interview. Now it means I had a sponsor who led me to a particular. He didn't even know he was being intentional, as a sponsor. So led me to this particular opportunity, right? And I had the interview, had all of that done. And then another opportunity came. So 2 different job opportunities. One was everything looked perfect. The money was great, not just good, it was great. The perks too, the benefits, very good. The second one was going to take me 2 steps down, right? From my level at the time, 2 steps down. Money was great. Office, 2 steps down. Benefits, great. On at first blush, looking at the both of them, I know everyone would have said, oh, this particular one, oh, with everything lined up, like they say in the world, the stars were aligned. So I didn't want to be swayed by, I'm Igbo, by the way. So you know what we say about Igbo people, right? So I didn't want to be swayed by, the perks, the benefits and all of that. And so I spoke to my husband about it. And, he said to me, you know how we do it. Abba's got to take control. And then we held hands, knelt down and prayed. We prayed and, I went ahead to pick up the 2 offer letters from both organizations. And mind you, these organizations were the best in their sector. They were the best, number 1 in their industry. So I picked up the offer letters and went back home. We prayed and all of that. About a week after, I had a dream. Now, in that dream, the organization that had, the flawless offer, wonderful, it was the latest automobile of the year, all of those perks, right? I had a dream about that organization, that I was working there. And in the dream, I needed to go to the restroom, right? To use the restroom. And I went into the restroom and name it, all of the vices you can imagine, I saw in the restroom. There was bribery going down. There was a whole lot of bickering, all of that. And, some level of, perversion. I'm not going to go into all of that. And then that woke me up. When I got up, I turned and looked at my husband. He was asleep. I said, okay, no issues. In the morning, we'll discuss. So in the morning, I spoke to him about it. And then he said, okay. So, we're still praying. Abba has shown you, so we left it at that. No, this was, I think, 3 days or so after I picked up the offer letter. Now, 2 days after that, making a total of 5 days, I then had another dream. This other dream, I was in the other organization, the one with the 2 steps down, everything else right, just, 2 steps down. And in that dream, I was having it was like a debrief session, but I wasn't the only one giving the talk. 2 other people had given the talk and, everybody clapped, as expected. And so when it got to my turn, I gave my own rendition. And when I was done, I sat down. It wasn't just a clap, but it was a standing ovation, right? And so I woke up. When I woke up, I told my husband about it. My husband said, so it's as clear as day, all of that. And that is one decision I do not regret. And you know how God does it, right? It may seem funny, right? Sometimes in the beginning. Now, recall I had said 2 steps down. So with that job, it was the timeline was short, right? Especially considering the organization, the timeline was short. The acceleration wasn't, right? So I thank God. Looking back, you know how they say hindsight 2020. Looking back now, I'm so grateful, so humbled that God decided to show me. So it's very key that across this entire relationships, you look at everything through the lens of the Holy Spirit, because just like you, they are fallible. Your mentors are fallible, your sponsors are fallible, your peers are just as fallible. So you take whatever it is you've heard, but you take it to the Lord and let him make that call for you. Worthy of note, build laterally and not just vertically, not just upwards. A whole lot of people imagine, that, the way to go is upwards. No, build laterally. I had already mentioned how your peers sometimes can double as your sponsors as well. Okay, so while we're talking relationship, it's very key that we invest in relationships, right? We cannot afford to treat people as career ATMs, always drawing and drawing and drawing, and we're not making any deposits. So in making deposit, I had given a few examples. Share an article, with someone online, connect them to someone, and then volunteer for a project. Very key. Now, genuine connections, I had also mentioned, lasts longer than transactional ones. That's as plain as day. Okay, so now that we've looked at, mindset and relationships, we're delving into some of the skills that have been identified as, 2025 ready skills. Some of them were very, 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 very accustomed to. Some we've heard, we've seen, we've also experienced. Some others, food for thought. Now, because we know the times we live in is very fast-paced. I mean, where people talk about us being in a gig economy where you are in Kafanchan and then the organization you work for is in Timbuktu or something, and you're earning your money. They don't see you. You don't even see them, at least not physically. You don't go to the office, but you deliver value. Now, that's gig economy, remote work, and all of that. Now, staying relevant with all of these trends, all of these evolving things, it's very key that we develop some skills, okay? The first one, in the past, we would hear communication, and under communication, we would hear it's verbal and written. Because of the world we live in now, visual has been added to that. Again, for obvious reasons. Everybody today is a publisher. Everybody, as the news is unfolding, which was, I want to believe that media establishments must have seen the handwriting on the wall, especially the moment we went digital, post-COVID era especially, right? People build their own career on being visual with their reportage. Maybe an accident has just occurred. You see someone, he's videoing, very, very, very insensitive. Yes, I know, but it's the reality of today's world. Videoing, and then the person is uploading and reporting on, instantly. Now, how does that come into paid employment? I am going to go into visibility, but right, while you're doing your work, you're pushing what it is you're doing, right? It's very key that beyond just doing, you showcase. Again, not eye service. We're still coming to that. In speech, right? Especially if you're in a job that requires that you stand before a crowd or you stand before teammates and all of that to make presentations, to defend a concept and all of that. Very, very key that you master this art. There are different ways and different things one can do to own that space. Now, one of the things I hear my husband say a lot of times is, don't play anybody's game. You are you. The Lord has created us unique. Some of us are storytellers. Some of us are more conservative. Some of us are more into, the skill, craft, handwork, like they say, whatever it is that is your space, because it is what you love. I presume because it is what you believe in, you've got to be able to sell it. I can come and show anybody something, for instance, something I've created, some craft I've made with my hand, and then somebody else is trying to push someone else to appreciate it or buy it. that person can't do justice to selling that thing more than I can. Why? Because I'm the originator of that thing. So you've got to master this skill. Your communication skills, very important. Now, critical thinking and adaptability. People would imagine, we all think, don't we? Critical thinking, now this is the ability to analyze information. Very key. And in analyzing it, you're analyzing it objectively. You want to evaluate different perspectives. You want to make sound and reasonable judgment at the end of the day. This is a skill a lot of times that is lacking. It's not just about gathering facts. It's not just about, just gathering information, but it's also about asking about the accuracy of such information. Example, instead of accepting a report that has been sent to you, instead of just accepting it at face value, you want to question the source. You want to check the assumptions. You want to weigh alternatives where there might be. You also want to, based off of all of this, you want to decide what the next steps will be. Now, for adaptability as well, this is the capacity to adjust your mindset. It's also the capacity to adjust your skills, very critical. And in adjusting your mindset, your skills, you also want to adjust your behavior when circumstances change. We all saw how the world changed. They call it the global reset, how the world changed right after COVID hit. Businesses that weren't already in the digital space were forced to go into that space and survive. Now that speaks to adaptability. The way Nigeria is, adaptability is a very critical, very, very critical skill. Now, Sister Christy will keep me honest here. I had my own experience, and it wasn't a very pleasant one. I had my own experience in seeking experienced hands, right? In fact, Sister Christy, I brought her into that conversation. I even brought Pastor into the conversation, seeking experienced hands, because there was so much work. And, the Japa thing had hit my team, bringing us down from 7 people to 2 people. So the workload was crazy. And for a whole year, I couldn't go on leave. It was that bad. So I was seeking experienced hands, to recruit into the team. And it was a tough one. Why was it tough? It was then that it hit me that all this talk about brain drain and all of that, people jackpying and all of that was real. I had my experience with that. Now, in adapting, right, we had looked at, the skill sets that we had. So out of, let's say, 10, you had someone who had maybe 7 or so, right, from that entire list. In my head, okay, time is of the essence. I had been trying to recruit for, 5 months or so. The journey had started sometime in May or so. And by October, I was still struggling, looking, to hire. And, so I had to compromise. I had to adapt to the situation I was faced with. And then I had to make a plan for the people I was going to hire. Now there are some skills, are critical. No negotiation, no compromise, This is, like they say, drop dead. I have to have people with these skills. So that informed the judgment, that I made, the judgment call I made at the end of the day, get them in. And then together with HR, craft some sort of training schedule just to bring them up to speed. So adaptability, very key. Now, tech proficiency, again, we all know this, right? Your Excel, your Office suite, Power BI, of course, this helps with your analytics, crunching your numbers. Another aspect of that, Canva, and then evolving technologies. Now we hear about AI, we hear about cloud compute, we hear about IoT and all of that. It would not necessarily, right, just for your career, but even in your everyday life, it would be good to try out some of these evolving technologies, to master some of these evolving technologies, to adapt to these technologies and then adopt them. Now, again, personal experience, speaking to my team, the way my team is structured, we have those that are, you know, we call them the go-to-market team, right? For the go-to-market team, now these are the people that deal with cross-functional teams in taking any product or any solution to market. So in taking all of that to market, you've got to depend on the brand and comms team, okay, within the same team. Now, for the brand and comms team, because we recently changed agencies, you know, there will be some lead time to they get accustomed to how we do things and all of that. But because it's a fast-paced environment and nobody's waiting for you, the mandate was everybody go and learn, everybody in the team. It doesn't matter if your brand and comms or whatever, everybody in the team, go and learn this particular skill, some creative skills, go and learn this particular skill, because I do not want dependencies. Let it be that, you know, when the time is right, we're not caught, you know, unprepared, you know. And I can't tell you just how that has helped. In fact, now it's, you know, without thoughts, you know, you have a brief or you have a project you need to execute. Your default setting is just, you know, go do it. Now you don't have the dependencies as tough as they used to be. Now that's speaking to my team. So it doesn't hurt for us to understand these evolving technologies. It doesn't hurt for us to try them out, play with them, you know, play around with them, see what they can offer and see the type of bearing they bring to your career, to your life even. See the kind of bearing they bring. Do they make life easier for you? Do they save you time? You know, these are some of the tools or platforms you want to adopt. Now, emotional intelligence and collaboration, very key. One would wonder, how is this a skill? It's a big skill. You hear, we're living in the age of mental health. I'm not going to go into my thoughts regarding that, but mental health. But even beyond that, you need to understand how people think. You need to understand how, if it's critical for you as a paid employee, how your bosses think. Recently I attended a training. I've never heard about it. I think this lady is pioneering it on the continent. It's called the Listening School. It was very key that I attended that training. And it was training, of course, for people in, you know, white collar jobs. I had never heard anybody break down listening like I did this lady, right? She listed out different ways people think. You know, there's a conceptual thinker, there's the analytical thinker, there's the reflective thinker, and then the other one, I've forgotten, the fourth one. There's a fourth one. And even while she was going into how people, even the body language, which is innate, you know, they can't help themselves, right? It was bringing back a whole lot to my mind, you know, for the different, you know, be it interview sessions or chats or conversations, you know, informal conversations I've had with different people and all. And it just was ticking the boxes. So sometimes we hear that the world has transcended IQ into EQ, you know, your emotional quotient, as opposed to the IQ, excuse me, as opposed to the IQ. People are trying to see if you're able to determine how people will feel, how your presentation would make some people react. You know, you've got to be able to, the world has so transcended IQ. It's so on EQ now, right? And in driving your response to different emotions. Now, that is where I'd say your mastery in shaping your career comes in. So imagine you're at an interview, right? A job interview, and you have, say, maybe 4 people on the panel, and you're talking. Maybe the question is, has a bearing on the particular skill for that role, and you're talking through it. And then the next thing, someone goes, ordinarily would think that's boredom, right? At first blush, it's boredom. And so it sets you on edge. Now, I've heard it say that sometimes during an interview, right? When you have, again, like that example, 4 people on the panel, and somebody is leaning in and he is probably tilting his head a bit and giving you his ear. That's literally body language for I'm interested. I am processing what you're saying. I'm analyzing and I'm hearing you. I'm actually listening to you. Now, where emotional intelligence comes in for the yawning guy and then the one that leans in and tilts the head, where emotional intelligence would come in is where, as opposed to just listing, your skill set, I will do this, I'm strong and I'm great at doing XYZ, blah, blah, blah. You want to weave in a conversation. You want to weave in a story and anecdotes. You want to wake the bored guy up, because again, for all you care, he might not be bored. Maybe he didn't get enough sleep, insufficient hours of sleep. Your guess is as good as mine, but you want him to be just as interested. So whatever that skill set is, if you're able to link it to a story, short story, right? It's an interview after all, short story, but short story that lands your point, that lands what you're able to do, right? My advice is do that. That would be my advice. Very short story. And again, your short story should follow, a very, we call it the STAR methodology. Now I'm sounding like an HR person, but,
Preach it, preach it, preach it. Break the STAR down, break it down.
So that's what you're doing is you're stating the situation, you're stating the task, you're stating the action, and of course, the result. Everybody wants to hear the result. So you've set the premise of that story. What action did you take? Which particular action did you take, right? What was the job to be done? Which action did you take? And what was the result? God help you. And of course, he always does. You have an analytical person on that panel. You want to push forth whatever that result is in terms of numbers, in terms of, cost savings, in terms of maybe dropping, what is it called now? Dropping maybe modes or models that were failing and not meeting the business objective. You want to drop that quickly and move on. Collaboration, now that, of course, it goes without saying, that speaks to a whole lot of partnership. Bonus point, when you are struggling in your place of work, struggling with budget, maybe lean budget for whatever reason, explore collaboration. And that collaboration is not necessarily within the organization. Try an external organization that has shared values with your current organization. One of the things that come to my mind, as basic as it is, but very key, you know how you go to the market and right beside that tomato seller is the grinding machine, who the tomato seller, doesn't run, or which rather the tomato seller doesn't run. But it's very strategic, very intentional that they situate that grinding machine next to the tomatoes seller, and there's that collaboration. You buy your tomatoes, you grind your tomatoes, business is done. So that's just it in the most basic form. Now, what skill, food for thought, what skill do I need for the next level I'm aiming for? Please think about that. Very, very key. So I had couched this food for thought, giving it its own slide because it's a star at this point. Now, the example I had given is that for you to think of unlocking your potential, like one would a smartphone, no matter how expensive that smartphone is, without those constant updates that you're meant to get. In fact, I have one phone like that in this house. That phone, oh gosh, I used that. I'm not a phone person. I used that phone till the last life. It was so bad that last life was like an elastic band. It cut. I stitched it together and continued to use it. My husband, he had to go buy me a new phone because, again, we all have the different peeves and what appeals to us. So without that constant update, that phone will get slow. It will become outdated. And guess what? Once it becomes outdated, what that means is that even the manufacturers do not provide support for it anymore. And what that then means is that it would become irrelevant. The same applies to us. Constant skill development. I know people harp on this. It's very, very important. It wasn't, I don't think anybody will harp on it. So constant skill development is how we are constantly upgrading our human software, us, to remain valuable to any employer, employable, and of course, impactful. And in the words of the futurist Alvin Toffler, he said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, those who cannot unlearn, and then those who cannot relearn. Again, life taught us this right after COVID. A whole lot of things we had to unlearn. How you do things manually. The world went digital. You also need to go digital. So you'll unlearn some things, learn some things to show adaptability, and then relearn some things. Some other things you always knew, but then probably never bothered with. Okay, so speaking to visibility, if you recall, I had mentioned the 3 key pillars, right? Visibility was one. Now, visibility is not vanity. Where people will tell you, make sure your boss is seeing the work you're doing. Make sure. Now, for me, that is eye service. You want to share work wins, yes, but it's not with bragging. Mindset key. Bragging, because that's where your mind space is. You don't want to brag about it. However, you do stuff, yes. Volunteer, I'll come to that shortly. Volunteer for cross-functional projects. Now, this happens in some organizations. It's not your job. Let's say you're in marketing, right? And there is a need for a team member or someone's skill in procurement, for lack of a better term, procurement. Now, for procurement, right, they do a whole lot of finance things, sourcing and stuff, right? You want to lend yourself out to that team because everybody knows it's not your space, right? But you were able to help out with something, you were able to do something there. People will notice, people will talk about it. Why? Because it's you coming out of what you are known for, what you've been known for, right? And doing something, and not just doing it, of course, shabbily, but you actually did that and did it well. Now, that's an example. LinkedIn. By show of hands, let me even do another pulse check. By show of hands, you're in paid employment on this call. You have a LinkedIn account. Please, let me see those hands up. I'm going to speak to it. That's why I'm asking that I see the hands up. By show of hands, you're in paid employment, you have a LinkedIn account. Raise your hand. Fantastic. Thank you, Sheung. Apologies, I'm sharing my screen. So 2 participants. Okay, that's what I can see. So, yeah. So I can't see the hands and call the names.
Do a session on LinkedIn.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something about LinkedIn. So I've been on LinkedIn for, please don't go and look for me on LinkedIn. That picture there is as old as Methuselah. I've been on LinkedIn for 13 years. 15 years, apologies, 2010. So I noticed something. And of course, like I said, all these evolving technologies, play with them. Do stuff. with them, you'd be amazed what you'd gather, the insight you'd gather, what you'd learn and what you'd unlearn, and then some things you'd relearn. Now, I find that with LinkedIn, the algorithms for that platform will, especially if you're on LinkedIn seeking, jobs, right? Or seeking some career connection, it's the ideal platform, one of the ideal platforms. LinkedIn's algorithm will pick your stuff up. They will pick your stuff up and offer you to an HR professional. Why? One, you don't just have a presence on LinkedIn, but your presence is rich and it's updated till date, what you currently do. You're constantly visiting LinkedIn. In other words, you're active. You drive some engagement on LinkedIn. It's very easy for the algorithms to pick you up and offer you to a potential employer. Now, I had mentioned that my picture, and it was intentional, I had mentioned that my picture is that picture is as old as, I kid you not, as old as Methuselah. But I'm not so bothered because I know the algorithm doesn't pick up on the quality or type, so to say, of the picture, but that there's a picture. Now, that's another upside. On that platform, I find that a lot of people I see would not have their picture at all. There's a presence, Olafemi Adeoye, for instance. Apologies if that's a real person. I just picked the name from my head. You have that. You have just a bit, just a bit of content on yourself. Newsflash, those algorithms will not pick you up and offer you. That is, if you're searching, leveraging LinkedIn, that is, put a picture, right? And I don't even think that my own picture is the most flattering, but put a picture, update your profile till date, right? Update your profile. Once in a while, push content. Now, I'm guilty of that. So much for being a brand person, but I am guilty of that, to be honest. But push out content from time to time. You can run engagement sessions on your LinkedIn. Now, these are the things that the algorithms will pick, and they are not human beings. It's machine, right? It's machine learning. They will pick all of these, and in their heads, okay, there's something going on in this person's space. So that person is a viable candidate. Push that. Now that's that. Then, build your profile from there, and then let your values shine through your voice. Now, I put voice there because for me, I search for an all-encompassing word. Voice, not necessarily voice as you hear my voice, but voice as to what you present. Now, you have personal platforms. You've got your Facebook. I'm not a Facebook person. I don't know. You've got Facebook. You've got Instagram. You've got, of course, there's TikTok. You've got TikTok. You've got LinkedIn, right? You've got Twitter. Let your voice be heard. Your voice doesn't necessarily have to be audio. It can be text. You go for an event. You host an event, whatever it is, a podcast, blah, blah, blah. Push out that content you want to, based off of your personal branding. Now, that personal branding is, again, let me recap that quickly. How do people perceive you? What have you been known for? All of this sums up your personal branding. Now, visibility is the stage where your personal brand gets amplified. Without a clear brand, visibility can be noise. That's a real possibility. But with a strong brand, visibility becomes influence. Now, you've been talking, let's say, okay, we all know that Sister Christy is an HR professional. Now, that's what she's known for. That's what we've come to know for how many years? When you think HR, she pops up in your head. Why? Because she's occupied that space of influence. It's what she's been known for, it's what she's been known as. And so when you're thinking, oh, I'm looking for a job, or I have this job opportunity, I even need an HR person to guide me, she pops up in your head. Now, that's what visibility will do for you. Bonus insight. I can't harp on this enough. Be spirit aligned. You want to pray for direction. Very, very key. Very, very key. We all know what the Bible says about trusting in the Lord and he will direct our path. You want to pray about discernment in the decisions that you will take, because again, your career can either make or mar you. Very key. You want to also embrace seasons of waiting and obedience. I've had that too, even in my, in my career trajectory. There have been seasons where I've quit a job, right? I didn't have any other thing in the offing, nothing was forthcoming, right? And in that, gosh, it's a humbling season, no doubt, because I'm hyper by nature. And so I've got to be doing, it's just my nature. I've got to be doing something. And so it really wasn't fun. But again, it was a period of humility and, of course, obedience, right? We all need to embrace those seasons because they come in life. Life is punctuated by such seasons. You can't unlock your potential without plugging into the source, who is the Holy Ghost. Again, be spirit aligned. Question for this is, what is that one decision in your career right now that needs prayer? I beg your pardon, that needs prayer and not pressure. Again, we are a faith congregation. We do not bow to pressure, but then prayer now on our knees really is where the power is. Okay. So recap, we talked about unlocking inner clarity, where we said we will begin, of course, with self-awareness. Know yourself. What is it? Now, me speaking about Kate Daniels, right? I'm first emotional before I am logical. I know that. It's me. No apologies. It's just my makeup. My husband is more logical first before he's emotional, right? So know yourself. What are your pressure points? What are those things you know about yourself? What your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. So for me, my strengths, there's quite a bit. I'm not going to list out everything, but one of them is I love to make excuses for people. For some reason, it's just my makeup, but it's me, right? I love to make excuses for people. So even when you're falling short, in my head, I'm making excuses for you and I want to help. It's my nature, right? Now, for some people, they're more analytical. Okay, so you're falling short. Why are you falling short? How are you? Of course, I will ask those questions, but the objective for me is I want to help. Some people, it's more like the coaching style. Why are you falling short? How are you falling short? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Blah, blah, blah. So just know yourself. We also talked about authentic relationships. Building relationships can sharpen you. Iron sharpeneth iron, and they can also drive you. You need those types of people, especially where your career is concerned. We have talked about the skills that scale, committing to developing your skills to stay relevant. We had talked about visibility that positions. We also had talked about it not being eye service. We had, of course, underpinning all of that, spirit alignment, I beg your pardon. Above all, let the Holy Spirit direct your path. Now, I came up with a formula. Don't shoot me. It's, again, how I think. For career success, relationships plus skills plus visibility, these three key. Now, for career impact, relationships multiplied by your skills, multiplied by your visibility, divided by consistency. Again, that is where personal branding comes in. You're known for this. This is what you keep at. This is what you know. This is what people know about you. Question for that: what will you start doing differently from today? So final words, again, it's just a charge. You're not behind. Forget other people. Forget what everybody else, is thinking. Okay, so my husband and I have been married 18 years. We clocked 18 in July. My best friend got married in 2006. I got married in 2007. And of course, when she got married, immediately popping out the babies, I got married and our children didn't come till our 12th year, right? But of course, I praise God, how he cocooned our minds, right? There was no pressure and I'm grateful for it. Sometimes I would even ask my husband back then, like, aren't you worried? Like, do you feel any pressure? Like, I didn't marry you for the children. Very, very key. You are not behind. Our children came to the glory of God. They did come. Do you understand? So you're not behind. Forget everybody else. Let them run their race. It's fine. Be intentional about your own. What is it that you want? Ask yourself. You are not stuck. We're children of God. We know that. We're not stuck. You are not invisible. Please. You're just a catalyst in motion. You will get there. Sometimes your next level is not a new job, which is true, but a new version of you. And that new version is spirit aligned. Okay, so I put down some resources, right? I can't read all of them off, right? And I grouped them, under different buckets. There's the one for skill development, the platforms for that, networking and relationship building, the offline and online, career visibility and branding, of course, the online and offline, and then mentorship and guidance. Now we are not just church people, we are Jesus people. Even within the fold, you have mentors, you have sponsors, and you have peers. Thank God Pastor is preaching this new series now, from stranger to family, breaking down barriers with love. Now, one of the key things we talk about in our house is, while, yes, we pray that the Lord delivers our entire household, but the siblings we'll be seeing in heaven truly are our siblings in the faith, right? Within us, we have those people. We need to reach out, we need to engage, So let me not preach. So some other resources. I'm a book person. Okay, so I'm a book and digital, but because I scribble, I'm a scribbler, right? Print calls more to me. Again, self-awareness, know yourself. So some of the books, I know some of these you can get the e-versions. I put Cal Newport as number one because that book, good. You're so good, they can't ignore you. Start with Why, Simon Sinek. Of course, I want to believe we know Numbers 3 and, I missed one out, apologies. Okay, maximizing your potential, and of course, places where you can get these offline tip. Roving Heights is a personal favorite. Now, you recall that at the start of this, we had a quick mind poll where I had asked, with all that we've seen, where I had asked, what's currently holding you back in your career? Lack of visibility, skill gaps, no mentors or sponsors, fear, or self-doubt. Start working on those today. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
I know.
Wow, 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 wow. I don't know, like others, it would be nice to see the reactions now. As you were speaking, and if I told anybody on this session that we didn't even do a dry run, which is for any session, we'll go through a dry run. We didn't do a dry run. It was just the topic and it was the timing. As you ran through it, I felt like if we spoke, it would be like this came as a result of us aligning. I am glad that it came just as it is. I don't know for others on this call what stood out for you, but as you were speaking, there were even some terms that are not articulated that way. Career ATMs. And then I started thinking about the instances where this has happened. I have a friend who we've been friends we did business school together, and she would only reach out to me when she needs employment or needs, she's out of a job, then she needs a new job, then that's the only time. And that's the time we become buddies again. So career ATMs, when you said that, that popped in my head. And really the most interesting thing, the biggest one was when you started the story, you're sharing your story. I always say to make it relatable is starting to share your story. Consulting Abba to make a decision. It's the biggest, it's the undue advantage we have as Christians. And I was just glad that you said that first, that sometimes it's the growth. In fact, I wrote about growth. That's my last post on LinkedIn. I wrote about growth not being in the direction with which we look at it, which is growth upward, where sometimes you're not looking at what's shining, where sometimes you're in a place to fulfill purpose. And I like the way you started it to say, career is not your job. And you tie that up to potential, to a purpose. And the way you then took it on to say, it's the narrative behind it. I'm an engineer that does what, right? Like I always say, I help people connect people with real opportunities, and that has become a brand for me. That narrative, have we started internalizing all of those points? I mean, for me, I kept on writing. There's a lot. And another one that I would say, I want to second stamp on taking cues um, when you're speaking and taking when you were speaking about communication and you were speaking about the soft skills, I was going to interject and say listening. The heart of listening has become the most important aspect of communication because AI can now write for us. Now, I even just write my thoughts into AI. It gives me the logical flow. I make it sound like me because I must always sound like me. That you read something, you say, that's Christiana's kind of words and choices of words. Listening, where Kate made us reflect on when you say you're emotionally intelligent, do you know whether the people you're communicating with are listening to you? Are you listening? What's the body language of the person listening to you? And how you quickly adapt your speech or whatever it is you're showcasing to them, to your audience. That for me was really responding emotionally to those body language was really key. And then for me, I also noted collaborating outside of your industry. Sometimes it could happen within, sometimes it could happen outside. Then the analogy drove home the point. Phone updates. The third point, I can share my screen. The third point on our agenda today was on continuous learning. So when you talked about the phone update, I was like, oh my God, that's just the only way to explain it. When you have a phone, a model of a phone, it would stop updating because they've started providing support functions, right? For that. And really, I started to think about it as, oh, that's the best analogy. In fact, I'm going to take it away from this session for any other session I'm having, using that analogy to drive home the point on continuous improvement. And lastly, for me personally, prayer, not pressure, which sometimes I see that I'm also guilty of, and maybe a few others here may be guilty of as well, where sometimes it's about pressure. Everybody around me is growing. What is my growth trajectory? Not bowing to those pressure, praying. Thank you so much, Kate. Katie, it's been such a aha moment, and every of our sessions usually have this, but let's open the audience to Q&A. We have sufficient time to take Q&A, and let's delve into it. You've had a trajectory, have had mine. But before we go into Q&A, I wanted us to start Q&A at 11:20. I realized that sometimes when we don't share our personal stories, people do not know, and they see it from the outward. It looks like, are you a fool for not taking this decision? And sometimes when your personal alignment, your personal values are not in alignment, people also could misinterpret that. When you mentioned these decisions about taking the job, the same thing has happened to me over and over again, where lately I wanted to take, I don't know if, oh, he's not able to join, he's having a session. I was going to say, Bishop, he's been saying, I want to hear the end of this testimony. I got two offers on a platter of gold. In fact, the next one, it was just this thing about a brand where I'd worked in Jumia. The CEO recommended me to another startup, and they were like, if you're looking for a rock star talent acquisition person, Christiana is your person. And the words were getting into my head. This founder was speaking with me, then sent someone else to speak with me. I think I've shared it on our platform before. Sent one of the persons they had recruited from Boston to speak with me, that I'll report to her in Dubai. By the time the person was done with the interview, she was like, nah, I can't, this girl, no, that she may have more years of experience, but that my understanding, my in-depth understanding of talent acquisition, it's beyond local. And that she doesn't see me report. Imagine someone I'm to report to and said, maybe they can terminate at contracts quicker, whereby I step in. I was like, who says this during interview? And that came. And when I started having this restlessness, I couldn't take the job. 4 months down the line, they were still trying to fill the position. I saw the advert again on LinkedIn, like 3 other agencies. And then I saw the salary because they kept on asking me, name your price, what do you want? And then I saw the salary. I was like, this is breakthrough for my family. I've been praying for this breakthrough, but I had that thing within me. Stay and work with this person, my current boss. I need you to stay and work with her. So I was like, my breakthrough finally came. Devil is speaking. I prayed, I consulted God over and over. I told Pastor, Bishop too was like, you're not going to go for the offer. Another multinational called. I said, you know what? Let's not take the conversation forward. It's a multinational I've been eyeing, but sometimes I'm like, what am I going to be selling? I've been eyeing it, and I know they pay well, and I like their career development programs. And I thought, yes, I will fulfill my mission much better in this multinational. And I heard it. So this European recruiter just said, what is stopping you? I said, I don't want to pursue it. I am still here. And when I asked God, God, you know what you're doing when you said I should work with this person? Things are happening. I said I should stay calm. And I should never be the one to ask for my raise or anything. It will happen. So every time people agitate and pressure me, you should do this, you should do that, I hear that state of calm. That's not my will for you. And that the purpose I'm there is to unlock people's destiny. So that my career is tied to people's destiny. At a point, I know I said, God is unfair. You know he's unfair. I would even unlock people's destiny that earn more than me or introduce and stuff. So, I was dealing with him in my own way, but the voice was stronger to say, have you prayed for your boss lately? And then the story of Moses and Aaron came to mind. To pray for my boss. That's why he wanted me to stay and work there. She's a born-again Christian, spirit-filled, maybe even more than me. I should pray for her. Okay. So this spiritual alignment you lasted on, I love it. I'm realizing that the need for us to also identify, like you said, that we're born again Christians. How are we leveraging it? I just thought I shared that. Let me not bore us with the details of my career trajectory, but Katie, thank you so much. Let's hear from the audience. Q&As, questions, clarity, if there are any questions from any of the session that Katie has shared. Any question? We started with starting with you and your career before we move.
I see Sister Taimo is asking. She said I didn't finish the interview hand sanitizer story.
Yes, true. You didn't.
No, I didn't. And I deliberately omitted it at the end because, again, for me, it's pulse check. Let me even be sure I wasn't talking to myself. Okay, so where did that story stop? Okay, position the bag. So yes, the chairman came in. The chairman came in with his head of legal. And immediately, the first thing he picked up on was the sanitizer. And then he said, what is this? I said, it's a hand sanitizer. He said, it's now a bag accessory. I laughed. I said, yeah, it doubles as an accessory. And of course, the sanitizing bit of it. And then we went into this Ebola and how it was ravaging rather the nation, all that. So it helped, again, like I said, for every interview, this is a me thing, right? You have to do you. Yes, I love conversation starters because my job, again, is storytelling, right? And so I want you to see me, not just as a candidate or interviewee. I need you to see me. You need to hear Kate. It's Kate before all of that. And so we got talking and then all of that, right? There were just two of us. there was a second, oh yes, please, Sister Christy, before I forget, please ask me for a scripture I want to share just at the end of this. So I had my interview, and when we were done, right, even I could tell, forget, he tried to put a stoic, appearance and all of that, but I could tell, okay, so you were personable, they like you, I love that. Like me first, hear me ahead of all of that, because there's that thing about it's an interview, you wear an interviewer's hat, the candidate is wearing a candidate's hat. No, hear me. It's what that does for me, right? What that does is you're beginning to see me as a colleague. You see, you're actually able to place me in the firm. You're actually, yes, able to see me working with you. So for me, it's just psychology, my thoughts, right? I'm not the HR expert, but that's how I reason these things out. So after that, he then asked that I sit with, an Indian lady who's the head of something, I can't recall. And before I went for this interview, I wasn't sold on it. And so it was, my Yoruba is terrible, but I'm going to speak. It was a Shere law experience for me. Because again, I had a job that I loved, right? And I was making impact. So I don't know, all of me just was not ready to leave, right? So I sat down with this other lady, and while we were talking, I couldn't get past, I'm not hot on people being demigods. And I had never met this man, the chairman. I'm not going to mention names. I've never met him one-on-one, nothing. It was always in front of his screen or on TV or something. So when I met with him, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great either. He wasn't rude in any way. And he didn't come off as a demigod. But I read the language of his head of legal. And this head of legal is a very tall and big lady, very impressive stature, right? And all I could see was that she was somewhat on edge, like, I will do your bidding, master type of, gosh, in my head, I was like, no, you're not just a head of legal. She was the group head, because there are subsidiaries under the organization, group head legal. Your stature should be one of professionalism. I should see that confidence such that even when you speak, your chairman knows that he hired a professional in that space. So that didn't go down well with me. So for me, -1. So I'm that intentional. So I sat down with this other Indian lady, the head of something, I can't remember. And when we were talking, I was answering her questions, I don't know if it's an Indian thing, but she was very matter of fact, she would ask, I would respond, ask, respond. And then when I finished, I saw her sink a bit, not like slouch, but more like, okay, I'm exhausted. I've poured myself out. And then she asked me, she said, why do you want this job? Don't get me wrong, good office, perks, like they say, was impressive. She said, why do you want this job? I was taken aback. I was like, okay, that I'm going to turn that question on its head. Why does she think anyone should occupy this space? She said, okay, that she's just going to give me one sentence. She said, the chairman, why do you want to work for him? In my head, madam, are you not working for him? So, but she said, why do you want to work for him? He's a maverick. He's a maverick. Are you able to cope? So when she said that, I said, Ngwano, -2. So when we finished that, I said, oh, okay. I hear you clearly when you say he's a maverick and all of that, but you all are here working with this maverick. She then smiled. She said, I like you. I said, okay, no issues. I'm going to give my feedback to HR, blah, 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 blah. You'll be hearing from HR. And so I left. Now, when that offer came through, I turned it down because just before I left, now, remember I said -2, yes? Just before I left, I saw, I don't know her position in the organization, but some other lady was coming out of the office. But by the way she was coming out and everybody behind her following her, I would wager she had, at least a prominent position in the organization. And she saw the chairman coming with head of legal behind him. I just saw the body language. She was nervous. There was, like, how we say, let me arrange, said, Mbao, this one is a school principal. No. This is, it's not going to work. So I left there. That was how that story ended. Now, I had a similar experience, right? One of the reasons, if you all can hear me on the call, one of the things I mentioned about, you setting up your LinkedIn and setting it up right, so the algorithms pick you as likely candidates for whatever role you search for, is with all of that set up on LinkedIn, right? And the algorithms picking you up, headhunting is common. It's common.
That's what I do for a living.
Hi.
Have you ever seen any director job advert from us?
Hi. Headhunting is like, okay, so my very first job was an ad agency, creative agency. The second creative agency, I was still in that creative agency when an FMCG, who's like number 2 in that space, reached out, their head of HR reached out to me. And again, that was the first inkling I had as to, how your LinkedIn setup should be and all of that. I had joined LinkedIn, prior, and I didn't do anything about it for like 2 years. Just picture, just a few, just pass information. 2012 was that year, right? And this head of HR reached out. No adverts. It was to be the group brand communications manager. Group being 4 subsidiaries and 58 brands. That's a lot of work. And that's a big-ish office, right? 58 brands. And she reached out. And it was my first headhunting experience, right? And hey, God help me, I was arrogant in those days because in my head, what? Like Igbo people say, in my head. Okay, so I hope there are Igbos on the call. And I hope my translation is right. So in, like, I felt, when life humbles you, you will calm down. So, So I went for that interview. And when they asked me how much, what my remuneration, current remuneration was, how much was I looking at, all that, the typical question. I had, of course, preparing for the interview, I had read up so much, watched so much, absorbed so much, all of that. How, no, you don't give them a figure, let them give you a figure. In all of my arrogance, hey, God help me, in all of my arrogance, I said to her, see how I even curved the mouth to say, I said to her, make me an offer I can't resist. Hey, I'm even cringing to remember that I said that. Oh gosh. But, yes. So again, I digress. That LinkedIn, very, very key. Very, very key. Please update your profiles, update them. The picture can have K-leg, it's fine.
What you're doing.
The algorithm will send through your profile. So now, speaking to the scripture, one scripture that has been said not once, not twice, I'm sure not 100 times, between my husband, before you go for whatever it is, interview, job promotion, interview, whatever, right? 1 Corinthians 1:5. In Jesus, I have been enriched in all my speaking and in all my knowledge. When, in fact, it was my husband that gave me that scripture. It was something that worked for him throughout university. He said, anyway, let me not go into his experience, but yes, he introduced me to that scripture. And to the glory of God, I have never gone for an interview where I didn't land the role, whether I was shere loin or, I was serious about it, So I find it's not kalu. Being with God is not kalu. It's that relationship. Yeah, it's that relationship with him and that understanding, that intimacy. One line I love to say to people, and I'm not, like the song says, I'm not speaking carnality. My affair with God is one of deep love, right? Where these guys couldn't have said it better. Winans phase 2. He's making love to my heart. So what I like to tell people is, whether it's your job, career, whatever,
business,
yes, let the Lord, make love to your heart. It's not so much the job itself, the career, the business. It's him. That focus should be on Christ. See, everything else will fall in line. It might not be the in line that you're expecting.
Yeah.
Yes, it might not be, because again, as Christians, our lives are, we're self-sacrificing, whether we like it or not. We're self-sacrificing always, you know. So I always tell people, for me, my career is a testimony through and through. That's why you see the trajectory. You know, I moved from healthcare, and if you understand marketing, it's rare, if at all, it happens. I moved from healthcare, which is a lot of times where a lot of marketing professionals go and their careers die, really. But I moved from, truly, you know, because again, healthcare, I'm not putting the industry down, but there's only so much you do, you know, as a marketing person, there's only so much you do. I moved from that to a sector that I dare say is one of the pivotal stands that Nigeria is currently sitting on. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. And yes, I have one question. We have a question here. As an entrepreneur, do I need a LinkedIn account?
Oh, yes. I would say yes. I know people know it as a paid employment networking platform. Yes, paid employment.
I've seen many founders on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
And they got funding through their accounts on LinkedIn.
Sister Christy, please, if I could high five you, I was just coming to that. So as an entrepreneur, you're a founder, you're the founder of a startup. There are always venture capitalists, always angel investors. And these people also browse that platform. So please don't imagine that, oh, it's only for paid employment. No, you own a business. It's a business. There is some income coming from what you do. So by all means, yes. Recall that we had spoken about mentors, we had spoken about sponsors, we had spoken about our peers, right? Or our allies. I had said, know the difference. Sponsors can come from LinkedIn. You'd be amazed. Because I might have seen something about, see, I know I keep mentioning my husband, but then that's my best friend. I'm a very, okay, I know I don't look it, but I'm a very conservative and introverted person. I hardly go out. It's my home, church, work, of course, my parents and all, that's all. But we talk a lot. And I'm asking my husband, oh, I need this, I need that. Oh, who do I call? Who do I call? And then he'll tell me, oh, while on LinkedIn, I saw XYZ. In that instance, he's being a sponsor to somebody and that person is a stranger. So please, by all means, yes. So long as you run a business, you're in a business, you're doing a business, you're paid by a business, yes, please, LinkedIn is still a very good platform. Sponsors, Yakba, how is it said in Yoruba?
Yes.
So, yes.
Yes. So the second one says, regarding positioning and I believe she meant visibility and visibility. How do I work on myself to make my business visible? I'm definitely lagging behind and making my business visible. So I think this is where your professional life comes in, where to develop this brand, this business. What are the things?
Okay, so this one is even a masterclass on its own. Really.
I thought
it's really a masterclass on its own. There's only so much I can say.
The second question. The second question says, what content should one put on LinkedIn as an entrepreneur?
Okay, I'll tell you something, an SME. Okay, so the organization I currently work in, right? You have opportunities to move around in the organization, and it's lateral movement, but just move around, gather knowledge from here, from that team, this team, and all of that. So, Sister Christy, that team I was with that I've moved from there to another team, right? Yeah. So we call it rotation. So I'm the Anambra in me jumped out. I'm currently rotating in another team, right? However, the previous team I moved from handles the enterprise arm of the organization. So we interface quite a bit with SMEs, large corporates, and public sector organizations. Now, I know of an SME, right, that we once had come in for a focus group session, right? And what she said to me was that, oh, that her sector isn't a bubbling one. It's not the fun one. It's not, where you have so much fanfare going on. And I asked her, okay, all of this, again, be careful mindset, all of this degradation, which sector is this? She said agriculture. And so she doesn't know exactly. So she doesn't know how she can leverage content, because we're talking about content, how she can leverage content to drive visibility. Again, I can't remember who asked that previous question. This is an idea, right? We live in the age of data, age of content, and attention. I call it attention economy. Please don't kid yourself. That's why all these reality stars / celebrities and all of that making money. It's attention economy. You want to pull attention. So when the lady, the agriculturist, said that, I said, okay, so what part of agriculture do you farm? There are different parts. She said, no, that what she does is manufacturing, but it's manufacturing within agriculture. And I said, have you shared that process with people? Have you shared, we're living in GMO age, right? This was 2 years ago or so, GMO or so age. Have you shared that process with people, just so they see how organic your produce is, just so they see how authentic your process is? Pull people, why not invite people into that journey with you? Let them see how you do what you do, so they can even trust the outcome of your process. Now, you call them into that universe, your universe, and they see how, because she said, oh, they have machines that pick some of the, let's say corn, pick the corns just so there is no stone, no sand, blah, blah, blah. But as a double check, they still have humans hand pick even after that process. And then it goes through the mill, blah, blah, blah. And then it gets, I said, wow. I was appreciating this journey because I wasn't aware. I said, so the angle you can come from, it's pure organic produce. Now let people see what's all of that. Yes. And when you finish, you show the packaging, blah, blah, blah. When you supply to whoever it is, ask for testimonials. Whoever that customer is, ask for testimonials. When you do supply, detail that journey. Now, all of these things I've said is still on content. Detail that journey, how you supply to supermarkets or wherever it is you supply. Detail that journey. Let them see, that entire process. What you're doing is bringing people on a ride with you as to how you make a living. It makes you personable. Again, it makes you likable. It makes you appealing, your business appealing. People want to be part of that big story, so yeah, so that would
thank you. Yeah. Yes, thank you. I think that would also answer the question around visibility, but we have a answer rates. Doyin, over to you.
Hello. So my question was just going to be, like, as a recruiter, you said, I mean, what are the specific things you look at? Because as a recruiter, you're a generalist, you're not a specialist in any particular field. What kind of pointers would you be looking at in the conversation to put a candidate forward to the next step? Thank you.
Okay, I think that question will be for Sister Christy. Yes, because I'm not a recruiter.
I figured. So you mean as a recruiter, or you are a recruiter, or you're directing it to me as a recruiter? I'm
directing it to you as a recruiter. I'm not a recruiter.
Okay. So I'll take that question. Okay, so as a recruiter, depending on the industry. So I've moved from healthcare, I did education, I moved into healthcare, and then I moved into e-commerce, and then now I'm in FMCG. Now my FMCG is really broad, which is going to be the manufacturing, food manufacturing. Then I have I'm currently in my new transition role. I'm in agriculture space, right? So for me so each time there's a need, because it's so broad, 23 companies under my current organization, 23 different companies doing different things. Maritime sector, textile industry. It's a multi-sectorial industry I play in. So textile, maritime. So one day I was there looking for a captain. How many captains are in Nigeria? I have to go to officers' mess in Ikoyi perhaps to find the type of captain I'm looking for. I bring in an expatriate. You're looking at we're looking at textile. We're looking at the food industry, the agro-allied industry. So you see, it's broad. So the requirements are usually broad. What Katie had spoken on earlier about positioning yourself on LinkedIn. We see that most people now project their picture as though that's what they're selling, as opposed to the contents. When I need a profile, I've downloaded your profile at the day you needed a role. All I needed to do was understand you and understand what is it you might be looking for. So understanding what my recruiter or my hiring manager is looking for is, once I understand that, I'll go and look for the buzzwords. Are they looking for a product management person, a project management person? What are the key essential requirements of that person? Meaning those sort of buzzwords, those sort of nomenclatures must be found. And that's the algorithm she was speaking to earlier. If you say, so now we've now gone into space of narrative. I help connect talents with real opportunities. The algorithm might not pick that header. However, if I put FMCG, recruiter from FMCG, my name might pop up. So it's really linking what you do, updating your status. If you're not a content person, at least update your status. Each time we go into people's profile, we'll look at people's profile. Like I can go into Kate's profile now. I'll link her up with people working in our organization. I'll check all our direct reports. I'll sort of be looking at the role title and then wanting to know who reports to her, who's more senior. Just by looking from my own page, I'll connect into our organization. People analytics is what I do. So the things that you're supposed to update are the things that are true to what you're doing. If your role title has changed, you're doing procurement or you're doing sourcing, you're doing buying, right? There's a buyer, we call some sourcers. So if the nomenclature is peculiar to your industry, you have to tailor it to what is universal, right? Nowadays, we see things like talent identification. And I went into a club recently, and this bunch of old folks were asking me questions, and they were like, recruiter, talent acquisition, what is that? I had to explain to them. So if I put talent acquisition and someone like them needs for their indigenous company, they won't find me because except my algorithm, the algorithm picks recruiter in what I've stated under talent acquisition. So if I tell you talent acquisition, it might not make sense.
Sorry to cut you short a little. So I'm talking more about in a verbal conversation, like the person has gone through you
Through
picked
your
them already.
profile.
Yeah, in an interview.
Oh, okay, that's different. So I think those are the things that Kate also had run through earlier, which are intentional about conversation starter. That's a very clever way to start. Now, sometimes, somewhat, there's a bias once we lock in an interest with a candidate. We're also more projecting one than the other. So it's first, the person who's connecting is the recruiter. Strike a conversational balance, strike any form of alliance with the person in the way where it's either on your values or something. So sometimes you're speaking to a candidate, you sense it that this is not the person. And then somewhere you are not projecting the person as you ought to be. So first, lock in interest with the recruiter. Now, when you start the conversation with the hiring managers, the interview panel, if they're using what we call the star guided approach, which is the situation, task, action, and result, you want to first be personable with the panelists. You want to lock in interests somewhere, because sometimes we found people who are very competent and the manager will say things like body language. I don't like this person. I just don't think it's the person, but she's very good at what she does, or is very great at what he does, but it's not it for me. This is not the person for me. So locking in interest is where it starts from, where when there's an interest, when they will tell me, oh, Christiana, there's a gap, but I see a potential we can work with. This person is not quite there. All the people in the internal team, you're looking for a leader. The leaders, you can groom the people in the team, but you say, no, I'm looking outside because they don't quite have what we need. right? You now find someone who's personable and there are gaps. You're willing to put in support. It's those personal interests. So really locking in personal interest is what gets you to the next level. So competence is one, attitude is another. One of what we are geared to do, fully committed to in Agile and Field, is the knowledge, skills, and attitude. We've seen people who know their onion through and through, but they're very arrogant. They're very arrogant. You already asked me that. And then all their body language and everything. You already know, is this the kind of leader you want? Is this person going to bully everyone, including their team members? Are people going to resign once we hire this person? So really locking in interest is what gets you to the next level. And yes, when you're intentional, once you're intentional, there's a level of intentionality in emotional intelligence, meaning as I'm speaking to 5 different people sitting down on a panel, I am locking interest with each one of them when I'm a mind reader. So when you're reading body language, you know who's connecting with you. Then you just direct your conversation with that person. Once you have a majority that are locked in, the rest is positive story. I leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well,
So the
you're
summary of it is more, it's about the connection. Do I like you? Am I willing to push you forward?
Yes. And know your onions.
Of course.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we have another question. We have, let me use my mouse. Okay. Someone said, as an entrepreneur, does visibility matter more than networking? I'll read the two and then you can take it together. More than networking. Would you say they are essentially the same thing? Visibility and networking. Which is more better, or are they the same? Second one is we have Taiwo saying, interesting. See me thinking content like this are meant for TikTok and Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Vibe with Vic, I see. Okay, so these two are not the same in any way. Now, one is you extending the pool of the people you know or connect with, your network, right? Expanding your ecosystem, so to say, right? And then the second one is you being intentional about being seen, being heard, being known about. Two different things. Now, if I say I want to, in my slides, I didn't talk about it because it came in the one of the slides, recap slides or so, right? So in your space, you know your space. Let's say it's marketing, for instance. You want to be intentional about widening your world, knowing more people. You want to network. That's the term we use, right? You want to network such that tomorrow you never can tell whose skill set will come in hand, right? In handy, whose knowledge, so to say, will come in handy, or you'll be leaning on. Who knows that gets to know about you, you can sponsor tomorrow, or vice versa. So networking is more or less you spreading your reach, knowing more people, getting more people to know about you. Visibility is you spreading knowledge about you, what you do, and how people should perceive you. And you leverage partnerships. So in other words, the spotlight is on you. You leverage partnerships where you leverage platforms, rather, whether they be physical or online, where you are projecting you are projecting your personal brand, that which you want to be known for, maybe your thought leadership in marketing, in engineering, whatever, or your thought leadership in the legal space, whatever it is. Now, when we think about, which example do I give now? Content creators are so many, I don't even, but when I focus on a niche within content creation, you see names pop up. If I say foodie, for instance, Eniola, no, Hilda Basi is even chef, but foodie, this one can eat for Africa. Hey, Eniola, yes, those names pop up. right? When I then say chef, you think Chef T, you think Ife's Kitchen, you think Hilda Bassi, you know, those names pop up. Why? They've leveraged platforms. Hilda Zone was like a masterstroke. That thing she did with Guinness Book of Records, it was a masterstroke. In fact, if an ad agency, for instance, right, or someone from an ad agency sat down and gave her that idea, that person should be given kudos because it was a masterstroke. She had the whole, not just Nigeria, the whole world focused on her, focused on what she was delivering, focused on what she wanted to do, and she trained for it. She did her build up. If you saw the build up of, it was a masterstroke. The build up rather that led to the actual cookathon. Fantastic. How she worked out, how she tested her endurance level, pushed herself to the limits, because again, we're women. I want to imagine all the women on the call cook. Sometimes, gosh, I'm too tired to cook. I just tell my husband, because we're going to eat out, I'm tired. Because again, the kind of work I do, I come home, I'm drained, right? And then the thought of cooking, woman or no woman, whether it defines woman, it doesn't, which I don't buy, it just doesn't appeal to you. So she would have gotten into that mind space that she needed to push herself to her limits just so she would attain that title. So again, networking, visibility, no, but they're not mutually exclusive. They can be linked, but they're not the same thing.
And not to go and make noise. I think I landed that in one of your points as well.
Yeah.
That visibility becomes your brand, and not to be making noise, because we do have now a lot of noisemakers. You're not clear with direction they are. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Let's see if there's any other question. It's 2 minutes to 12, so we can round up. Okay, yeah, well, there's a last chat here that says interesting. Taiwo, she says she thought she's been thinking content like this are meant for TikTok and Instagram.
I think maybe the part I spoke about pushing content on LinkedIn. See, every social media platform can be leveraged to push content. Every TikTok sprang up right after, I think Instagram also was the yes, and now it's TikTok, so please leverage every possible platform. However, I must sound that in saying leverage every possible platform, that is key or relevant for what you do. For what you do. Sometimes you can be on a particular platform and you just look like a joke. Why do I say this? If I'm doing thought leadership on, say, serious business tips and all of that, and then, yeah, LinkedIn is fine. Even TikTok, as social as TikTok is fine, However, if I'm doing that and I go, let's say, none comes to mind, but maybe there's a Papa Ajasco platform, I'm just saying, right? And then I go and drop that there. There is just no link, none whatsoever. None whatsoever, but you have nuggets, you have snackable content you want to push out. Twitter, great for that, fantastic, in fact, and so on and so forth.
Awesome. It's 12 o'clock. We have to unfortunately have to go. It's 12 o'clock. We don't want to overrun. I still should know that will be an Instagram kind of thing. Wake up in the morning, you're in the office, and then the next thing is you're seeing Botox. You're seeing eyebrow being drawn. I think their target audience.
They have their platforms.
Their target audience is what determines where. But how you also define what you do on each differs. You can be there on LinkedIn and defining it differently without putting certain content up.
Yes, I was going to speak to that. You tailor the content to the platform you have. So like Sister Christy said, of course, you're not putting Botox or Brazilian butt or whatever it is, eyebrow, whatever it is, estheticians do. I actually follow one. But that lady I follow, okay, I'm not advertising anybody, but yeah. So she's an esthetician, right? Sometimes I don't agree with her content, to be honest, but again, some other times, yes, it makes sense. If you're putting out thought leadership in that space, LinkedIn is good. is good
Yeah.
for an esthetician, right? I'm not coming to show you how I waxed my eyebrow or did Brazilian wax or whatever it is, but I'm coming to say, okay, as a professional, because you know the audience on that platform happen to be professionals. As a professional, these are some skin products that will suit you because you're constantly sitting in an air-conditioned room. Now you're making sense to that audience. You can tell them, yes, you can tell them whatever cream with aloe vera, I don't know, sorry, I don't claim to know, but you get what I mean. Stuff like that. So you tailor it to the audience of that platform.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I hope you got your response there, Taiwo. Thank you so much, everyone, for those that have still that are still remaining with us. It's 13 of us. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. We hope you learned a thing or two. And it's not just to take the learning. I mean, it's to take an action. What will you go and do differently? At least we need 1 or 2 testimonies from this session. Would it be you? We put it back to you. Within the next month, let's hear what has happened to you as a result of this session. This is why we do these things. We do it not just to, oh, it feels good. Oh, okay, makes sense. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. No, at the end of it is the testimonies that come out of it, is the breakthroughs that come out of it. We hope that one person, at least one person, will land their dream career and their dream job or something they've been eyeing, or launch a project, whatever it is you're doing in your space. Thank you for taking time out on a Saturday morning to join. And again, to our speaker, Kate, we can't pay you for this session, but God will bless you. We thank you. We appreciate it. The time you took, I mean, the details of your slides and the broad dimension you took us through. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.